Xerox is associated with a specific photocopy machine as opposed to a photocopier. Now, how do you prevent from that happening in the first place? The way you do it in the first place is you file a trademark application with the US Patent and Trademark Office early on and get a federal registration that allows you to then go send them a cease and desist letter, or if you have to, take them to court. But the thing about even that, when you get a federal registration, is you also have to do what's called police your mark. And so that means you have to always put your circle R or your little TM after your trademark. So you're making every competitor aware and every person in the public aware, this is my trademark and it is a trademark. So that you're putting people on notice that they won't knock it off. All right, next category, trade secrets. All right.
Like an in-house manufacturing or other process that you just don't disclose so that you get the edge.
Yep, and one other key aspect to it, that you don't disclose it and it has economic value associated with it. So the fact that it's not generally known and the information underlying it has a strong economic tie to it is really important to it being classified as a trade secret. So it's a little bit different than the confidential information. Oftentimes, some piece of confidential information actually could be a piece of information that other people know as well, so it doesn't have a ton of strong economic value to it. But a trade secret really is that next level where the fact that the other people don't know about it, it really brings it a strong value proposition. Next one is copyrights. Okay. All right, copyrights are an expression of an idea. So they're works of authorship. So if you think about Romeo and Juliet is basically just a love story. So you can't stop somebody from writing or producing a song or a play or a movie about a love story. But if you have a very specific expression about that love story, then you can get a copyright in that and you can prevent them from copying your idea. Now, if they come up with it completely independently, without referring to it, then they are free to use it. So you literally have to copy in order to infringe copyright. All right, now what we're going to spend most of our time on today is patents. And so patents cover inventions. And what does that mean? We'll get into it in more detail. So the purpose of the patent system is to reward inventors and encourage them to produce innovations. In exchange, you're going to get a limited time in which you can exploit that invention. Now, the way you're going to exploit it is through preventing other people from using it, okay? So it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to use it, but it's a right to stop other people from using it. And we'll talk about the balance of that in just a second. Now, why would the government want to do that? The government wants to do that because when you file a patent application, that patent then gets published and it becomes public knowledge to everybody. And so we generate this huge database of knowledge that is readily available to the public. So people are constantly learning one on top of another and getting better and better and better. So next part of the quiz. Having a patent provides the patent holder with the right to exclude others from practicing the patent holder's invention, the right to make, use, and sell the patent holder's invention, or both A and B. So everybody who thinks it's A, raise your hand. All right. And everybody who thinks it's B. And everybody who thinks it's C. All right. It's actually just A. So it's the right to exclude others from practicing a patent holder's invention. And we're going to get into an example in just a minute about why it's not also B. Right. So Adam invents and claims a chair. So this chair comprises a seating surface, 4 legs, and a back. I think you can see that there in that picture. B is sitting in a lecture about IP and is nodding off, is very tired, has been doing a lot of studying, and realizes that, hey, if I add an arm to my chair, I can rest my head and fall asleep during this boring IP lecture. And so she decides that she's going to invent this new chair that has arms on it. So Hers is in the lower picture. She has a seating surface, 4 legs, a back, and 2 arms. So would B be able to make and sell that chair if Adam has invented and claimed the chair that has a seating surface, 4 legs, and a back?
No, she doesn't have freedom to operate because the basic design of that chair has been patented. She only has freedom to operate for those arms, the armrests.
Okay. And so to break that down a little bit, if we looked at her chair, we see that it has a seating surface, right? We see that she has 4 legs, and we also see that she has a back. And so Adam owns that combination. So Adam would be able to say, hey, you can't sell this. So Adam says, great. I'm going to put arms on a chair and I'm going to start selling it, right? Can Adam do that? Why?
B claimed the addition of 2 arms.
That's right. So B filed a patent and got it issued on the chair that has the addition of the arms. So if that right is a right to exclude somebody else from doing it, she can exclude him. So now what's going to happen? No chairs are going to exist? Or are they only only chair that's going to exist is Adam's basic chair? Or what's going to happen?
B can license the patent from Adam.
And vice versa. So they can do a cross license. And so you end up with, from a government's perspective, benefit for society as a whole, because you have 2 manufacturers now providing chairs that have the features that everybody wants, which is the combination of all of those elements together. All right. Now, in the example, why did I specifically say claims a chair when I was talking about Adam? Because I wanted to denote that it was actually patented. So it didn't fall into one of the other categories of intellectual property. It was out there, where it's visible, it could be seen. And so Adam did the smart thing and patented it before putting it out in the public domain. Now, with respect to the 2 different chairs, what was prior art in that example? Any ideas? No. So prior art refers to what's in the public domain or what's known out as common knowledge and shown in patents and publications and other things. And so because Adam came along before B, Adam's chair was actually prior art to B's invention. And so when B went to the patent office to get her patent, she had to convince the patent examiner at the patent office that adding chairs was new, hadn't been done before, and that it was non-obvious. Non-obvious is a very vague concept, but essentially what it is that she was providing a benefit that otherwise had not been previously known or appreciated until she came along with coming up with this great advantage of being able to fall asleep in a lecture. All right. So, true or false? Merely having a patent will stop others from copying my patented product. All those that think that's true? Good. All those think it's false? That's right. It's false. There's a lot of infringement that goes on all the time, even in view of patents. All right. True or false? We didn't copy anyone's product, so we don't infringe anyone's patents. True or false? So true. All right. And false? Yeah, that's right. False. There could be a patent out there. It's why we're going to get into later on prior art searching and patent searching, so you can determine whether or not there's patents out there or not. All right. Last one here. True or false? I've never seen this product on the market, so it must be patentable. Anybody thinks that's true? And everybody thinks it's false? Yeah. That's right. So fortunately, there's lots and lots of things that come up and get patented, but the person who owns the patent ultimately doesn't have the resources or the experience or the knowledge of things in order to turn them into products on the market. And so they're laying there dormant, waiting for somebody to come along who has those experiences and the right resources to turn it into reality. So let's talk about getting a patent. So you're going to file a patent application with the US Patent and Trademark Office. And there's two fundamental types of patent applications, which are provisional applications and regular applications. A provisional application is one that does not go on to turn into a real patent. It is just a placeholder. And you fully describe your invention, but you don't have to figure out what you're going to claim associated with your invention. And then you file it in the patent office. Then you go off when you talk to potential investors or mom and dad or friends and family, and you try to raise some money to turn this idea into reality. And hopefully during the 1 year that provisional application is pending, you're able to find that money and get working on it. And if you are, then you're going to file a regular application that is going to take priority back to when you filed the original one. And that regular application is going to turn into a real patent. Now, the patent application I mentioned is not a form. Instead, you have to write free form, or your patent agent or your patent attorney has to write it for you. Free form a description of whatever invention or product or item or apparatus or method that you've come up with. That is going to go to the patent office. It's going to sit there for about a year because the patent office has a lot of backlog of patent applications to work on. And then eventually they're going to pick it up and they're going to examine it. And the patent examiner generally has a lot of experience in the scope of inventions that you're working on. And they will use all that knowledge that they have, and they'll decide whether or not you're trying to claim they think is new and non-obvious. Chances are they're going to tell you that they don't think it's new or it's not obvious, or they think it is obvious. And then they'll send you an office action. In that office action, they'll tell you the reasons why they think that the claims in the patent are not patentable. And you have an opportunity to argue back with them by making comments, or you can make amendments and revisions to your claims in order to get over whatever their argument is. Presumably you persuade them with that, they send you a notice of allowance, and the patent goes on to issue. Now, off of that patent application, before it issues, while it's still pending, you can file a continuation application, a divisional application, a continuation in part application, or a PCT. PCT stands for Patent Cooperation Treaty application. It is very similar to the provisional, except that it's used in the international arena, which is you file that PCT application. It is a placeholder that allows you to go and try to raise money or figure out whether or not you really want to go and try to get patents in all the foreign countries where there might be a market for your product. And it gives you the time to raise that money and make that determination before you have to jump right into all the expense associated with getting a patent in another country or multiple other countries. Now, continuations and divisionals are super important. So when you file your patent application, more than likely, you are going to have more than one invention in your patent application. And so it's important that you have claims to cover all the inventions that you've described. And so if the patent examiner looks at your claim, at your original claims and says, you have more than one invention here, you have to divide this out. Then that second one that you file based on that is what's called the divisional. If you on your own decide that you want to claim some of the other inventions that you have described that you didn't claim in your first patent application, then you're going to file a continuation. Now, down at the bottom, there's a whole bunch of patent speak, and I put it out there because when you start working with the patent agent or you start working with a patent attorney, they're going to be talking to you about prosecution, the file wrapper, office actions, rejections, responses, amendments, allowances, all of those things. And those are arcane terminology associated with this idea of turning a patent application into a patent, right? Yes, question.
When would you file a divisional versus just having separate independent claims in a single patent?
You typically always want to file them first in one because there is procedural advantages to the examiner saying you've got more than one invention in here and making you do that restriction requirement so that your own patent application, that second patent application, can't be used against you as prior art. If you choose to file them separately, then the examiner has the opportunity to say, one of your patent applications is actually prior art to your other one.
Does the patent examiner use maybe the same techniques we would of like keyword searches to try and determine if there's any other patents out there that you're infringing?
That is one of the methods that they use, but typically that's kind of a method of last resort, and that's typically when they're trying to search non-patent literature. There's a classification system associated with patents where different technologies are put into different categories or classifications, and the patent examiner oftentimes will use those classes first and starts going through all the ones in the classes, and or they'll do classification search plus a couple of keywords. But generally speaking, the keywords alone is the last thing they do unless they do it in non-patent literature. Yeah. So the continuations, the divisionals, and continuation in parts are super important, especially in life sciences, because the road from initial idea to getting in the marketplace to competitors coming along and responding to your product being in the marketplace is really long. We're talking about 5, 10, 15 years. And what you started off thinking were the key features and elements of your invention when you originally had that idea, you'll often find through experimentation and challenges along the way, changes. And you probably had it described in some way or another in your original patent application, but you didn't necessarily claim it the right way. So if you keep an application alive, you always have the opportunity to file new claims on whatever those various elements of different combination are that end up being what's really commercially valuable. And John's gonna give you a good example of that a little bit later on. All right. Are we doing okay on time?
We're a little over, maybe 3 more minutes.
Yep, we're getting very close. Okay, all right. So, so quick little fun example. So let's just switch from patentability for a second and talk about infringement. There is literal infringement, which means that if you look at a patent claim, you see another product and you do just like we did before, we read every word in that patent claim and we see if we can find it and read it on that product. There's another type of infringement called doctrine of equivalence. The doctrine of equivalence says, I can't find it exactly perfectly there in that product, but essentially it's doing the same thing. It's functioning the same way. It's accomplishing the same task. So that would be infringement of the doctrine of equivalence. And this is why there's so much litigation, because both sides obviously have a different opinion about whether or not there's infringement of the doctrine of equivalence or not. And so there's lots of litigation and fighting over that. The other thing I'll mention about it is designing around. So if you have a particular claim, it does read on your product, you have the opportunity to change your product and essentially design around or get out from underneath those claims to avoid infringement. So looking at the claim that there in red, so seating surface, at least one supporting leg, an articulating back, at least one arm, and a cushion on the seating surface. So just looking at the 6 examples, do you see any examples that you immediately would say, I don't see literal infringement? So yeah, so you can see why there's also often disputes around patents, even on this most simple example. So in this most simple example, we probably can say that a cushion on the seating surface is not seen in the 2 wooden chairs. So they probably quickly are out. But then you start getting into these other examples, and the question is there literal infringement? So you have to start asking yourselves, is a rocking chair, is that actually articulating? Or is the only ones that are articulating the 2, office chairs that can move back? So there's a lot of, argument, a lot of nuance that goes into it. Now, what also is tied to this is a description in the patent application. And so the description in the patent application, if it is very narrow and very specific and only describes exactly what the product is, the apparatus is, then the less opportunity you have to argue the doctrine of equivalence. But if you give lots and lots of examples in your patent application about what you mean by a cushion, what you mean by a leg, what you mean by the articulating back, then you have a greater opportunity to take that claim and make it cover many more of these examples.